Hi, we are here to talk about the Tour of America's Dairyland, which is the location that all of the mini grant recipients will be racing in a couple weeks, actually, about a month and a half. It's right around the corner. So today I have here Mia Cheeseman, who can introduce herself a little bit better than I can. So I'm going to let her go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Super excited to be here. I am Mia Cheeseman. I just recently moved from Madison, Wisconsin to Tucson, Arizona, work in the remote world life. And so I'm a user researcher by day, a full-time job, and by night and weekends, a bike racer, specializing mostly in criteriums. I race for the team called Automatic Racing. We're connected with or committed to USA Crits and the Pro Road Tour, and then, of course, Toad. And I have been racing Toad since 2013, which makes me feel really old now that I say that. I started out maybe a little too early racing because I just got so hooked by it early on in my cycling career, and I just jumped in. I didn't know anything. Tried to go online on USA Cycling's website and kind of study the racing Bible and the rule book. But it is the best way to, I think, learn about criterium racing. And if you do a few of these races, I guarantee you're going to get hooked. So I'm super excited to chat with you all about it and answer any questions that you guys might have.
Sweet. And then we also have Lai King. Would you like to?
Hi, yeah, I'm Lai King, and I've recently joined the Tour of America's Dairyland family. We all wear many hats in making this series happen, and the part that I kind of specialize in is the community aspect, and we are absolutely thrilled to be partnering with Ayesha and the Abundance Summit, and being able to bring this opportunity to some new women of color racers here to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and our surrounding metro area. So Mia, in all of these years that you've been racing Toad, tell us, what's your favorite memory? What do you?
Yeah, I have so many. I think, I can just kind of give you a little bit of background on some of the racing that I've done for Toad. I think every year has been a different experience for me. Starting at the very beginning, not being on a team, or I think I was part of a club team at the time, being that sort of solo racer, not being in the Cat 4 at the time. They didn't even have Cat 5. Being a onesie, a one-off, meeting, going out and meeting new people who were potentially, well, they were all much stronger. So I don't think I ever won a race. I've actually never won a Toad jersey, which is, I feel like maybe this year would be the year, but it's been evasive. But and then in prior more recent years on a composite team out of Chicago, that was an amazing experience. I've raced with Amy D, which is another kind of composite team. When I say composite, I mean women from different teams that come together to form one unique team under a different sort of name brand, if you will, for one race series. And so you get outfitted with their kit. And Amy D had a really awesome look, orange and blue. And you kind of get to race collectively together. And I will say, when I started off, I don't personally think that it's super necessary to be on a team. It's fun to go show up with other women racers, just from a standpoint of getting ready and thinking through all the things that you kind of need to get prepared. I've often told someone oh yeah, I raced at 11 o'clock. And they're like, 11 o'clock, oh crap. They had they'd gotten the time mixed up because each day is a different city and a potentially different time. So that part's really good. Just that camaraderie, but I don't think it's as necessary until you get to the upper ranks. So in the Pro 1-2 field, there will be other teams or people that'll show up together with one or two or three, maybe 4 or 5 other people. And you'll see some tactics play out in that. I highly recommend to any of the women that are racing the 3, 4, 5 to come out and support the women's Pro 1-2 race. And we will be doing the same for you guys. But it's a great way to learn and sit next to someone that kind of knows what's going on. And you get a lot of great insights that way. So I think, my experiences have varied from year to year, but they've all been super positive and have really brought together my racing and tactics and learning through what criterium racing is all about, and really kind of honing in on my power skills. I mean, the one really neat thing about Tour of America's Dairyland is you get 11 days of a huge variety. You'll have fast, flat courses that might finish on a slight uprise, or might, kind of you'll be into the wind, or you'll be coming off an off-camber turn. You might have some hills, which don't really belong in criteriums, but there'll be some races with some different features. And so you'll have different days that you'll recognize that suits your power output or just your style a lot better. There'll be other days where, someone will just take off. Like there'll be some national time trial retired champion that'll show up in one of our races, and you have to decide, do you want to chase that down? You want to blow yourself up for that, or decide to like work together with someone else? You want to try to bridge to that? So there's lots of different things happening in each one of those races because there are 11 days and all on different courses.
So, Lai King,
Yeah.
how many days is it this year?
Well, because COVID never makes anything easy, we're thinking it's going to be 9 or 10 days. And I say that with a fair amount of certainty. So we're going to probably have a day off or two in the middle, but we are still working on a few cities and just solidifying them and making sure that we can really pull this off. We've got a lot of health departments that we're working with to make sure that we are doing and providing the safest environment, not only for our racers, but also for the community that just loves to come out and cheer on the racers and bring out that party spirit that Toad is so famous for. And keep an eye on the Toad website and our social media channels, because that information is going to be coming out very soon. It literally changes every day. And we've got a team of people that are working on it to just make sure that we are going to race in some fashion, and it's going to be awesome.
Great. Cool. All right. So a couple of questions have come in, and they're mostly like the basics of what the racing is like. And so I guess it is road racing, but Toad is more specifically majority criterium racing. I know there have been circuits in the past, and there may be one or two this year, possibly. But for the most part, we're talking criteriums. And maybe, Mia, you can give us an insight on what that means. One of the most popular questions was, how long are the races each day? And like, what were the fastest times? And I know for the beginner field, which is kind of what we're focusing on in this video, I've been informed that the 3, 4, 5 races will be 40 minutes every day. So that, yeah, do you want to explain how that works?
Sure. So like, I think the actual, USA cycling definition of a criterium is that it's a loop or a lapped event that is, each one of those laps is less than a mile. I think most of the courses at Toad are 0.8-ish, 0.75, but there'll be some that will feel a little shorter and some that'll be a little bit longer.
Just a tiny bit.
What's that?
Just a tiny bit longer. I think there's one that comes in right around 1 mile.
Oh,
exactly.
Okay. So in order to keep the schedule going, most of these types of events, criterium events, will lock in on a certain time frame. So it's as many laps as your field decides to put out during that time frame. So it can vary widely. Like if you get a nice tailwind on one side of the section, and then the other straightaway might be like completely shielded by wind, for example. Like you might end up having a much higher miles per hour, and so you might produce more laps in that day than say the next day that has the same amount of distance around the lap. So they're all like closed courses. They're oftentimes in a downtown kind of environment, closed off from traffic, and they are you just go around and around the same course. You don't have to worry about it. Just follow the wheel in front of you, and if you take off first, then there'll be someone pointing you along the way. But yeah, it's pretty simple as far as that's concerned. Trying to think here as far as where you're slated in the day. You do have usually, maybe 10 minutes in between races to kind of preview the course. And you can always come out super early if you want. After the event organizers, of course, are set up, they'll open up the course for anyone to go through and pre-ride. So there are a few new courses this year, but some of them are returning. So I highly recommend you go on YouTube and look up some of the courses there. And there'll be sometimes there are female races that someone will put a GoPro on their bike, and you can actually watch the course happen and fold out in front of you. And if not, the men's races are also, they'll be a little bit different, but the course will still be the same.
So for the navigationally challenged, how do you know where to go, like when you're racing?
Well, for example, like I know, let's see, give me an example of a race. Like there's just barricades and there's really no way to go wrong. There's just go straight and you just follow the road because it's all closed off.
It's the best. I'm navigationally challenged.
True, you're pretty much just riding around the block.
There is no choose your adventure. Like it is.
Can't get lost.
Can't get lost.
It's pretty great. And there's also usually a pace car or a pace.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I forgot about that.
So if you're with the front of the group, you can usually see the moto. So you're feeling great, and for some reason you find yourself in the front, you'll know where to go because the moto will go there first. And otherwise, it's been a while
since I've raced. I forgot about that.
Bikes in front of you, and if for some reason you get gapped off the back, meaning that you're still going, but the pack has gone a little faster, a little further ahead, you just keep going in the direction you're going, and there are usually markers and marshals and lots of indications of which way to go. So you cannot get lost, which I know does not seem like a concern for a lot of people, but I think another deterrent for some folks is like, oh, what happens if I get lost, like in a road race, which, they can be tens of miles. And so it's like, how do I find my way back if I don't know where I'm going? Not a problem with crit racing, which is
exactly
cool. Sweet. What's next?
I was going to say one of the greatest things, and you talked about this a little bit, Mia, was that you get so many opportunities with a series like Toad, because if it doesn't work out one day, you come back the next day and you have like 10 other days to keep on working on the different strategies you've learned. But one of the other things that I know that in talking with Ayesha in the past of why a series like Toad is so important is that it allows you a chance to race against people like in a chunk, right? Like you get a lot of opportunities and you get a lot of chance to upgrade. And do you want to talk for a minute about, how do people get categorized in different like Cat 3, 4, 5, and how do you move up? And how does that whole system work for people that are new to racing?
Sure. That answer is probably best answered by, or that question is answered by Googling USA cycling and rankings, and they'll have a page on there that kind of talks about points. So everyone that's new to cycling starts as a Cat 5, male or female, and you enter in these races. The way that you're ranked is really a measure of or an evaluation of your result across the finish line in comparison to the other racers. So for example, if I win a bike race, but there's only 2 other people in the race, I'm not going to get any points value on that. There has to be at least, I think, 5 people in order to earn a point in a race. Whereas if you have in some of the races that I've lined up, even in the amateur level, are 50 people. So you obviously winning against 49 other females is significant, right? So then you get more value for that win. And they evaluate how many points you have for each finish across a 12-year rolling period. So that's how you would upgrade to the next level. And I think I'll just say one quick thing about upgrading. There's sometimes a hesitation, I think, especially for females, to kind of be willing or be excited about that next level because it feels good winning. And I will encourage everyone, like if you're winning an event by, several seconds over the rest of the field, or if you're breaking away and you're winning and you feel like you're not pushing that hard, like that means that you need to upgrade. And I think that's the key thing there is that you don't want to sandbag. People will call you out for that. And it's just sort of good for the sport to see people that are achieving results and then sort of moving past that category, because your ultimate goal is to move forward. Not everyone wants to win a race. Some people are bike racers because they love the environment. They love that it gives them a challenge, something to sort of work toward a goal. And that's fine too. But for the people that are achieving good results consistently, I think that's the real opportunity to upgrade. And the way that USA Cycling does that in the US is by looking at your wins and your finishes as a comparison to other people.
Cool. I just want to also be mindful of more inclusive language. This grant is open to anybody who applies for the women's field, and that includes trans women and non-binary racers. So just keeping in mind that not everybody who is participating that participating necessarily identifies as male specifically or female specifically.
Sure. Yeah. I think I'm just referring to the name of the category. But very good point.
Cool. Yeah. So I think your point about going to USA Cycling for that, the specifics, like I remember constantly visiting that chart that tells you like, this is what a road race like what counts as a road race, what counts as a crit, how do you get these points, how many people are in the field. It's kind of, you can go down a rabbit hole of like trying to figure all of that out, but also it's not, when you're getting started, it's not super important. I think the bigger things are to make sure that you're on the start line on time.
Yeah, exactly.
With all the things that you need and worry about the details later.
Yeah.
But I think not sandbagging is also much appreciated, which gets a little challenging when you have combined fields. But I think it's important to note that the way that they score combined fields is that you are, and you might have said this, I might have zoned out, but
No.
you are
you're evaluated against that. Yeah, you're
being evaluated against everyone in your category and the categories that are amateur to you.
Yeah.
So you're not competing, you are competing against, but you're not being scored against category 2 if you're category 3.
Right.
So if you're category 2 and you beat all the category 3s, that doesn't count for your, I said that backwards, but that doesn't count for your upgrade points. So you're only going to get credit for all of the category 2s you beat. But if you're category 3, you'll get credit for all the category 3s and the category 2s.
Right.
And so
Tour of America's Dairyland, I think, took that upon themselves. I think after fielding some feedback, especially in the 4, I think it was a 3, 4, 5 when they made the change. And I mean, there's a wide variety of skill level there, right? And oftentimes, like to your point, there will be a split in the field, especially if there's a hill. This is going to happen, and there's nothing to be discouraged about, especially if it's your first race. Like no one is expecting you to be at the front of the Cat 3 group that might split off. And there's nothing to say that if you're a Cat 3, you're racing with, you might fall behind and you be racing with the 4 5s. It's like, I mean, I think it creates by having the racers race together, but then scoring them separately. That's technically what's happening there. Not every race is like that, but Toad is. It allows you the ability to still practice and still get your workout and still like get this race experience, but then be scored among your category.
And I think different people prefer different things. Like I enjoy racing with, well, now I guess I get to race with the pros whenever, but when I was a Cat 4 or Cat 3, I really enjoyed racing with categories that were higher than mine because I felt like those were the races where I grew the most. Just because I was being forced to push myself even further. And it was also a great learning opportunity to kind of see what the other riders were doing and like how they were cornering, or, technique is a huge thing as well that can help in the long run. Like I always say, I'm not the fastest or the strongest, but I'm a pretty smart bike racer, and that has taken me a very long way.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool.
We could talk a little bit about cornering and maybe some tips, if that would help, about crit racing specifically, or do you want to wait on that?
I don't think there's any harm in that. You want to throw some?
Great idea.
Yeah. So I kind of mentioned that each course will have a little variety to it. Even if they're both shaped rectangularly, streets can be off cambered differently. So when I say off camber, like the way the concrete is poured from the left to the right, sometimes they're more flat and sometimes they're going to have more of a rise in the middle for basically water. So when it rains, it filters out differently. Not that that's super relevant, but for cornering, you might approach that corner a little bit differently. So we kind of mentioned before that you kind of, when you are racing, you just follow the moto, but you might find yourself approaching a corner slightly different based on the course and based how wide that corner is, or if it's a left versus right-hand turn. Or in Milwaukee, we have these great things called potholes occasionally, which you may not want to roll directly over especially if you don't have tubeless. Because it can cause some issues with your bike, like a flat, which would be no fun. But that's life. It happens. But the key there is to go through the course before the race starts and do a couple of laps. If you don't have time for some reason to do that, maybe take the first couple of laps a little bit more conservatively and follow, kind of take note of where the features in the road are and like how people are approaching the turns. In general, when I'm racing, I tend to, if I'm taking a right-hand turn, I'm going to set that corner up a little bit more on the left side so that when I'm kind of cutting the apex, so I can take that turn at the fastest. And depending on the speed and depending on how much you're turning over, I really don't turn my handlebars. I'm leaning more than anything else. And that's one thing that kind of takes a little bit of practice, maybe getting out there and actually just doing it. And it sounds weird when I say it out loud, but you might be able to just do that on the next ride you go on, is just practicing turning and like leaning in. So you're kind of on a right-hand turn, you're changing, you're shifting of how you're weighted on the bike, and you're keeping that right foot up. So when you're pedaling, you're going to keep that the right foot up higher, and then like really pushing through the left side to kind of lock out your bike, so that if someone comes up behind you or brushes up close to you, you're really solid and your center of gravity is low. Additionally, I would get in my drops, which are, if you have, well, everyone's got the drop bar handlebars, you want to get low. So keeping your weight down below versus sitting up really tall and like relaxed. We do that for a number of reasons, but the main is to keep your center of gravity low. The others for aerodynamics. So most of these races are going to be in and around Milwaukee. It can be very, very windy. And sometimes it can be very gusty as well. So you want to keep your balance down low. And you also want to go as fast as you can, right? So you don't want to be super upright. I have a really tall torso. I'm 5 foot, almost 7, and I have a 28-inch inseam. So I'm like, for me, like that is a giant amount of wind, right? Like barrier. So you don't want that slowing you down. You want to really work on getting small, if you will, and tucking in and being more aerodynamic, so that drag comes over you. That'll help you go faster. So number one is how you approach the corner. If you're taking a right turn, you want your opposite leg down. So if you're taking a left-hand turn, your left foot is up. Some people can pedal through the corners if it's pretty flat and you're taking it really wide. Might not be a huge problem, but something to practice during your pre-laps and while you're out riding. Second is to be in your drops so that you can lower your center of gravity and keep aerodynamic. So those are probably the biggest things. And then additionally, I would say there's this term that you might hear during the race that some of the other people might yell out, and it's hold your line. And the whole essence is you want to be very predictable in bike racing. There is some risk involved, like anything else in the world that you do. You might be getting up into like 20 miles an hour, for example, because you're drafting off each other. And so you want to make sure that you're as predictable as possible for the people behind you. There are some elements of you don't want to get too close to people. The person in front of you always has the right of way, just like skiing or snowboarding. The person down in front of you has that right of way. So if they're taking a not so great line through the corner, that is sort of their prerogative. And you can set up your turn differently, but you got to do it behind them, and you got to do it without interrupting their flow or their traffic. Another reason I forgot, when you're in your drops, you also you're protecting people from hooking you. So when you're close by, and most of the time in the beginning races, you're not going to really need to worry about this, but it's just one more reason to kind of think about when you do get tight into a corner, for example, or another racer is coming up behind you. Maybe he or she is looking down. They are looking down. Sorry, I'm trying to work on this. Looking down the road for a preem, for example, which we'll talk about in a minute. They may not be as aware of where their handlebars are, right? So they can come up behind you and sort of hook your handlebars. It's not necessarily catastrophic. Like if you are holding your line and you're nice and low and you don't freak out. It's happened to me several times before, and everyone was fine. So that's another reason. If you keep your hands in your drops, it's harder for people to hook you. So it'd be another reason to kind of keep that in mind. The other last thing I would say is never brake hard. Like you want to do all your slowing of momentum before you get to a turn or
feathering of the brakes.
Yeah, you're like +1 vote. The other thing to keep in mind too is that like everyone's on different equipment. So I ride rim brake. A lot of people in the peloton will be racing with disc brake, and they stop a lot firmer. And so you want to work on feathering your brake in before you get to the turn. You don't want to brake throughout the turn. And the main thing is you want to, be nice and flowy. You want to be predictive. The more you slam on your brakes, the more it causes issues from behind you and next to you. So you could also practice that when you're riding around your neighborhood or in group rides that you might be doing as practice, or even your training rides, looking through corners and trying to practice doing all your slowing of momentum and getting a better feel of how fast you feel comfortable taking a left or right hand turn.
Yep. I think the only thing I would add to that, like you said, you mentioned looking through corners. So look where you want to go. Like if you look at the pothole, you're going to hit it.
Yeah. Or the tree,
That always works out
or the dog.
Don't you don't want to run into. So look beyond. But I think one of the coolest things about bike racing and like improving your cornering is that you can kind of stick within the group and follow people in front of you. So if I go through a turn and I'm going to coast through it and I see that the people in front of me have pedaled through and now they have a little bit more space, it took them a little bit further, the next time through that corner, I'm going to pedal through too, because now I know it's physically possible.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to practice these things at home, parking lots are great. Water bottles make excellent cones. You can set up your own kind of practice course. And YouTube is such a good resource. There's so many how-to videos that will give you a lot of the same tips that Mia just did, but show you visually what that looks like, what that can feel like. And I found those things to be very helpful. But don't bog yourself down on all the things that you don't know, because that's the beauty of a beginning field, is that the other people in your field are also still learning, and you're all racing, but you're also learning together, and it gets better the more that everybody does it. And so, yes, try and have a basic understanding of how these things work, but don't freak out if you're not an expert, because it's a beginner field. That's the point.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. So you said you were a part of a team, but with crit racing, you don't always have to be, right?
Right. Yeah. There are some events that you might enter that require you to be at a certain level or in a certain be on a team. But at this, for Tour of America's Dairyland, super inclusive. Like you can show up, with your friend or by yourself. Totally doesn't matter. You might see other people with the same uniform, which we call a kit. And they might just be teammates. They not necessarily would even be working together. I've definitely had that scenario where my teammate was much stronger than I was and kind of had her own race. And we were wearing the same uniform. We might warm up together, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're working together in the race. So, yeah.
Cool. What happens if you crash? This might be a really great time to talk about free laps.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say as a whole, the chances of crashing are not, they're not super high. I don't know the statistics on that. I've definitely seen crashes in the beginner races, but I wouldn't get overly stressed about it as long as you stay cool and kind of follow some of the tactics that we're offering and some tips about bike handling. But if it does happen, you would, as long as it's not the last, they'll tell you actually at the start line.
Yeah, that's a good question for the start line. Like, if official will say, like, we're starting in 2 minutes, free laps are 5 laps to go. And that means that as long as it's not 5 laps on the counter, there's usually a lap counter. As long as it doesn't say 5, as long as it says 6 or anything above that, then you have the ability to go to the pit. You want to explain the pit?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, like I have had a situation where I got a flat. So it's something that I had no control over. If for example, my seat post just started slipping, that would not be an example of something that would qualify for a free lap. And you can Google all this. It's all in the USA Cycling, their race Bible. But when I got a flat, I was able to get off my bike and then walk to, you can't go backwards on the course. So you can't ride even if the pit's just slightly behind you, you can't go back there. You have to go all the way through. In some courses, they'll let you cut the course. So if it's a long rectangle, you don't have to go all the way around the rectangle. If it's here and you need to go there, you can just cut through on a block. And then you just show up and they give you show them your number and you say, I'd like to take a free lap and this is the situation. There's always there's like a tent, and you should know where this is while you're doing your warm up. But there'll be they call it the pit, but it's just a tent with a mechanic, neutral support. There's usually at least 2 mechanics there, as well as an official from USA Cycling, and they'll be in a ref or a USA Cycling uniform. And you explain what happened, and if they agree that it was something out of your control, that was mechanical or whatnot, or in my case, it was a flat, then they subtract that from the laps that you've done, and they reinsert you in the race as if that never happened. So you don't have to like play catch up for that time. There'll be, you can bring your own wheels or borrow someone's, and they can put that new wheel on, or you can borrow one of the neutral support wheels for the end of that race. You have to obviously give it back when you're done with the race, but it allows you to continue your event and your competition without having to play catch up behind for that incident.
It's pretty cool because that means that if something happens that isn't necessarily your fault, and you have to stop, like even if you're not caught in the crash, like if you're not physically hurt or injured in the crash, if the crash happens in front of you, if you put your foot down, you can also go to the pit. So everybody who was affected by it goes to the pit.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like nowhere near them and the crash happened like half a mile up the road, so that's not it. But if you're all riding and then right in front of you a crash happens, put your foot down and then everybody will run to the pit and you'll keep going. As long as you're not hurt and your bike is okay, you can keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to be aware of a self-assessment. Like if you are injured, like actually injured, maybe you stay down. But if you just fell or you got a flat or whatever it is, I encourage you to keep going because the race isn't over and you get to jump right back into the rest of the field. There's an official at the pit and they will tell you next time around you can go. And when they blow the whistle, you pedal like hell and then try and jump back in the pack. And it's really cool. And I think that's only in crit racing. I don't think you can do that in any other kind of
I don't think so.
Of road racing. It's a really cool feature. So yeah.
And I will also add, like I have a friend who's an official, and like the main reason they do that is they don't want you to be in a scenario where there's a crash or something happens and you get up injured and you're like, but I really want to, I know that like I'm XYZ place in the Omnium and I really want to go hard and like finish well. And people end up making kind of silly, I won't say silly, but like uneducated decisions that affect other people. So by giving you that ability to put your foot down, as Ayesha was saying, it allows you to kind of reset your race. And also kind of from an adrenaline standpoint, it kind of like allows you to just take a deep breath, relax, and go to the pit and then sort of like restart your race.
Yeah, and it's happened to everybody. It's not like a rookie thing for you to get caught behind a crash and then have to go to the pit. Like we've all done it. So how do you register, Lai King? How do you register for Toad?
Well, the registration is planned to open on May 1st through Bike Reg. So you can do everything online. And we are thrilled to be able to provide the registration for the winners of the Abundance Mini Grant. And we'll get some, remind me, I've got to get those coupon codes to you so we can get those to all the winners. And really, that's it. It used to be that you could register in person, but we are really trying to get everyone to do things online. I'm sure if there's an extenuating circumstance, you would be able to register in person. But we do have a great crew at the race every day in a tent that is there and ready to help everyone. Do you have any experience that you want to share, Mia, about the registration process and like getting ready for like the days leading up to the race? Anything that you need to think about, prepare?
I mean, I will say on registration, it helps if you have an idea. For me, it's like a management of like what courses are the best for me and how much time I have off work. So I know in advance which days I'm going to race. For people that are able and willing to commit to all days of racing, there's usually a cost incentive. Am I right? By signing up in advance. So that'd be the only main thing I'd have to really worry about is looking at the time and the schedule per day, and then deciding which races I want to do. In the past, I've traditionally tried to do all of them. So it's just there's one little easy button that says sign me up for everything. This is the category I want to sign up for, and then it's really straightforward. As far as your other question about preparation, I am a cycling coach on the side. So if anyone wants to reach out to me and ask me any questions, I welcome that. One of the main things is, you really look at your schedule and you try to kind of build up to what criterium racing is, which is a lot of higher power output. There'll be a lot more punchy power output. And when I say power, I just mean like how much you're exerting effort. And it might be different than if you're a traditional time trialist, or if you're coming over from, say, a triathlon or Ironman, where your main mission there is to kind of keep an output of very consistent power. Traditionally, that may happen in some of your races where it feels very much like that, like a time trial, where everyone's kind of doing the same pace. But traditionally, criterium racing, and why so many people like myself are drawn to it, is because it does have a lot of variety of power. So you might have, if you're going to do a breakaway, so you're riding around and you're like, I think I can get away from everyone. You might give a nice big power, like a jump, and then try to sustain a higher power, but know that everyone's chasing you behind you, right? So that's why when I get closer to race season, especially for Toad, I traditionally start weaving in some of those higher power outputs, some 30-second on, 30-second off, 40-second on, 20-second off. Start weaving those in so that my body gets more adapted to that higher power output that I might not be used to if I were just consistently training at like a more of a time trial pace.
I think it's really awesome also that, like, and it might be a reason that crit racing is a very American thing, but it doesn't take as much time to prepare for overall, because the races are shorter than longer distance road racing. You can cram in those like high intensity workouts into a smaller hour frame weekly and get quite a bit done. It's also really cool that the body types and frames of crit racers tend to not be like the skinny mini Chris Froome style body types. You can be real thick and do real well, and that's awesome. I think there's like a huge misconception that like bike racers have to be the thinnest person on the planet, and that is not the case. Track racers tend to be thicker and more muscular. Crit racers I've seen very skinny, talented crit racers and real big, talented crit racers, and they've all been successful in some way. And so I think that makes the range of possibilities much wider when it comes to crit racing, because the courses are also very varied. So there are some, it's predominantly flat, but there are some that'll have like a punchy climb in them, or they'll be flat all the way around, or like or more technical, like there's a different course that will suit other people, and not everybody is going to be good at the same thing. So it's really cool. I don't know. I think crit racing is an excellent entry point into road racing in general, but it can also be the only point. Like, you don't have to go and do other things if you decide you don't want to. Like, some people very happily just race crits, and that's fine. Sweet. I guess we are almost done here. Was there anything that we think that is super important that we want to add in before we go?
I saw that housing is included with the grant. Is that correct? Or like a stipend, or how are you guys managing that?
That is correct. So all of the mini grant recipients are going to be staying in the same house.
Oh, nice.
And we've picked out some pretty good accommodations. So there's lots of space. There might be the sharing of a few rooms, but I think for the most part, everybody will have their own space. There's lots of space for people to take peaceful, quiet, alone moments, indoor space and outdoor space for that. And so I think it's going to be really good. I think... So in my experience, when I'm like guest riding or doing these types of races, and I'm usually by myself, I end up having to take care of myself pretty much completely. There will be some support for people who are doing this mini grant, but I think it's really cool to see, what areas you need to look out for yourself for, and what areas, people will look out for you. And if you're on like a fully supported team, that goes down. Like, there are, dedicated cooks or dedicated whatever that will do stuff for you. But when you're getting started, you're responsible for feeding yourself and transporting yourself, and responsible for, there's no one who's going to give you a massage, or like, these things are not happening for you. And so it's important to like not just focus on the racing, but also focus on the recovery, like the food, the hydration, and the like sitting down and doing nothing are essential to success, especially when you're doing a multi-day race like that, because you want to be fresh as possible to keep coming back and giving it your all the next day. So I encourage you to also look into like recovery tips, or ask people that have experience about recovery. YouTube's a great resource. We are a great resource, but there are lots of people have done this before you, so you don't have to come up with everything on your own. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And I do believe that we will have mentorship available for all of the mini grant recipients. You can ask somebody who's been down this road, and they'll be more than happy to answer and help.
Google something about electrolytes, because it can get really hot and muggy, especially if you're from, say, the desert and you're coming to the Midwest for the very first time. Humidity has an effect on people, just like people from the Midwest going to Tucson. So be aware of the temperature and what that can do for you. But electrolytes is a lot of people have different opinions about it, but it's something that you probably want to look into, just because you're going to be racing during probably a hot part of the day. Also on about weather, like it could potentially rain. So you might want to think about rain gear, because the race will go on unless there's lightning.
Yep, sure will. I will make sure that ice socks are there.
Yeah.
That was like the biggest thing I learned at Toad. I discovered ice socks. I'd never seen them before.
And it gets hot here in the summer.
It's so hot in the summer.
It's surprising.
Pantyhose. I have like a jar of like empty, like cut off pantyhose in my exercise room. But you take one leg of pantyhose and you just stuff ice in them, and you tie it off, and you just stick it in your jersey or your sports bra, and it melts while you ride, and it feels incredible because it's super hot, and it helps you keep your body temperature down. But that's what the people around you are there for. And that's the beauty of going to these races and racing in other places and with other people, because you get to see these things and you get to learn these things. And you're like, man, how are these people surviving this heat? And then you look over and you're like, ice socks. Got it. I need to get me some of those. And then you get you some of those, and now you have them, and you can tell the next person. And I think I get really fascinated really easy by like things like that, and other people are like, well, of course ice socks. I'm just like, but it's so mind-blowing.
Oh, life hacks, they're so good.
And I think it's awesome that people are staying together. I totally think it's going to be a great experience for anyone jumping in. Like, try to meet people, like, even though they're your competitors, like most people, I would say like 99% of people I've met at a bike race are super cool. Anyone on a bike, I mean, with minor exception. And you're laughing at that. They're easy to spot. No, but like, make conversations with people, get to know people. I mean, I have met people at a race and then looked them up afterwards and like gone to their, like, oh, I'm in Boulder. I know like a bunch of people that live there, and like look them up and go for a ride or go for coffee. It's a great way to expand your network. And, you learn so many different things from different people. It's a really neat thing about Toad is it's like a summer camp, if you will. People are coming in from all over. Like in our races, there'll be, I'm sure, and to be other race categories, people from all over the world. So it's a great learning opportunity, and see what they're doing and what sort of success or what sort of like pathway they're on, and not to be intimidated. Like everyone had to start at this point where you are right now at some point. So I think that's really key, to try to have fun with this and learn a lot. So I think it's awesome you guys are making this available.
And I will add one thing, and I'm not sure, like, you ladies have way more experience in racing other places, but I think Toad does a great job about creating like a women's community here when the races are going on, like in terms of having like the women's ride. They've had dinners in the past. I think really trying to find ways to make it more welcoming, because there are so many people coming from so many places all over the world to Wisconsin. So I think, I don't know, is it like that everywhere? I think bike friends are the best, and bike community is great, and there's so much sharing.
Yeah, I will give a mass shout out to the people that started Toad. Tom and Bill are, I mean, they're people in their life. They're big supporters of women's racing and Women X racing, getting more people on bikes. It's not just about like this bottom line, like we need more people for a revenue standpoint. They really ultimately care about people coming to their race and talking about it and having a positive experience. And I personally like have brought multiple different opinions and options. The fact that there is a 2-3 women's field is predominantly from a couple people like Erin and Nala, and a couple folks that saw the opportunity and like presented data, which I thought was awesome. Did a really great job kind of presenting actual facts and presenting their viewpoint on it, and now it's an actual thing. So same thing with coffee rights. We brought that, I think it was a couple of years ago, like how cool it would be to intermix people. And it came out also supported out of a survey that they had. So very open-minded. You're not going to find that everywhere, but most people that are running bike races really want you to have a good experience and want you to like walk away having positive thoughts about it and telling all your friends about it as well. So
cool. I think that is an excellent place to stop. I am super appreciative of your time. Thank you for coming and talking to us about your experiences and sharing your expertise. And if people want to find you, is Easy Squeeze Cheese the best place, or where?
Yeah, I'm on the gram. I'm on Facebook, and Hub Solutions Coaching is my website if you want to check that out too. Cool. But I'm easy to get hold of.
Sweet. Okay. If y'all have any further questions, just leave them in whatever comment section you're watching this on, and hopefully you'll get an answer. We'll do our best. And applications end on April 21st. It is April, right? What month is it?
It's coming up soon. There's still time.
Yeah, so there's still time. Get those applications in. If you are at all in doubt, don't worry about it. Just apply. Please apply.
And ask all the questions.
Yeah, it's very possibly for you. Do not self-select yourself out of it. Cool. That's it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.